Hey, welcome back to the channel, man. Make sure y'all subscribe to this channel if you already not like this video, and comment down below. Make sure to let me know if you a fan of Migos, Takeoff, Young Dolph, and let me know where y'all from, who you rocking with. Let's get right into it, man. So if y'all didn't already know, Lil Cam and Pat, they cousins. They stay in the same place. That's how Lil Cam was able to point him out so quickly. Because when they asked him in the interrogation room, they said, Lil Cam, what do you know about the other guy? And he says, look, I don't know much, but all I know is his name is DJ Pat and he lives this and there, and I could take you right to him. And they're like, dang, that's it? Okay, so let's go ahead and go. So they rode down. They hopped in the, you know how they all be riding, they hopped in the SUV, all blacked out. And it was an unmarked unit. So they hopped Lil Cam in the unmarked unit and had him go down. Because they stay together, all he had to do was go over to the place they be staying at. And so he was like, yeah, they was roommates and everything, because they actually share and split a bunk bed in the same room. So he was like, I know everything about him. He's playing 2K right now. And so when they pulled up on him, he pointed, he said, yeah, it's that back window right there. And he acted like he got out. And Lil Cam walked into the place. He knocked on Pat's room and he was like, hey, I'm out. They just let me out. Open this door. And so Pat was like, okay, bet. He opened the door and it was boom, feds, HPD. They came kicking through the window with ropes on the roof, and everything came out the vents and everything like that. They even did flashbang and everything. And so what you guys ought to understand is that Lil Cam knew exactly what Pat was doing, where he was, and they didn't know that they was close, that they was related this whole entire time. Because they had, once they got Pat, he said that everything was Lil Cam's idea. And he threw it right back to him. He put the ball right back in his yard. And he said, nah, it was him that did it. Because the way Pat explained everything was that he said Lil Cam and Pat, they was down bad, hurting real bad, like dang near broke, right? And they was sitting in the room and they said they need to come up on the lick or something. And they was arguing with Quavo on Twitter from before. So they say, hey, they know this little party that's coming up. They know that the Migos is going to be there. Quavo, Takeoff. And they're like, Offset's not going to be there. So if this is their one and only chance to actually make a move on something, because they knew that Offset had already left the group. If Offset left the group, he left Migos, that means he's not going to be at the party in Houston. So all they had to do was basically hit up MobTies people, hit up Jazz and Junior, and they got on the invite list so that they could have the tickets sent out to them. They got the tickets and everything like that. And, you know, they went and borrowed whatever clothes they could borrow, like that yellow hoodie. He had to borrow that. He had to finesse that some way. And so what happened is that they pulled up, you know, went through the parking and everything. They showed their tickets. They scanned them in. Now they in the party. And they said, hey, that they were going to be the crash test dummies. If they needed nothing, you just have to give the signal to them. And so they plotted in their room exactly how they were going to try to run up and stick up the Migos and everything. But they just needed the fake argument to distract them so that they wouldn't realize what's going on. Because if they just try to run up on the Migos and Quavo and Takeoff when nobody's arguing, then they could see it coming from a mile away. You already know that Migo Bands is on the lookout. He got his head on a swivel because he's already knowing that one of the dudes is beefing with Quavo. And so once the dice game finishes up and they ran his pockets, they knew that they was going to try to argue some more, because Quavo had been saying things. He was heated. He was roasting him in there. And so because he was roasting him, they got into the argument. They're like, that's a perfect decoy so that they could get into the argument with him outside. And when they do that, that's when Pat and Lil Cam come to the equation. But Pat and Lil Cam couldn't do nothing or make a move or anything like that unless everybody was distracted. So the whole point of the argument and all of that back and forth, because it seemed like a fake argument anyways to me. They was talking about basketball and all this and weird. Like, it just seemed unorganic. I don't know about y'all, but if you go back and binge watch all my videos and you listen to it again, you will come to find out that that is actually a fake argument. It was basically set up to distract everybody as a decoy to look over this way. And then that's when Pat and Cam try to run up on Takeoff. First, Cam went and stood by Takeoff. You could see it because he had the yellow hoodie was on. And he even put his hood up for a second there too, because he knew he was on camera. Now Pat was standing over the shoulder of Quavo, and he was kept egging on the dude who was in front of Quavo arguing with the white hat. He kept looking at him, egging him on to argue. He was waiting for the signal. And then as soon as Quavo said that he was about to walk off and you see the shiny shoes start to tiptoeing away, that's when Pat might have tried to swung on him. And the swinging was to get everybody to go to Quavo so that they could actually get the Takeoff. Because you got to understand, they knew how everything was going to play out. They're like, yeah, Takeoff won't be expecting it and everything because the argument is going to be with Quavo. So because they moved together, when somebody argue with Quavo, that's when Takeoff going to look over there. And then he's going to try to take a step forward and get into the situation to save Quavo. But that's when he don't realize that the guy standing next to him the whole time is Lil Cam. And he says, don't move a muscle. Give it up right then and there. He told him to give it up, the chain. I guess he was talking about the chain or the rings or something, right? Or the money they had. And so that's when Migo Band sees that and DJ Pat pulls his move on Quavo, and then everything goes south from there. And then that's when you see the people running off. You can see, you can even hear the sneakers squeaking like it was a basketball court, but it was squeaking because they running so fast to get away. And then they jump in that whip. Pat and Lil Cam, they hop in the same whip, the same one. When they go back, when they find that car and they dust the fingerprints, they're going to realize that Cam and Pat got away in the same Cadillac truck. And they still have to find the third getaway driver. So it's a third person out there that they got him in the interrogation room right now trying to figure out what happened. They said, hey, enough of your funny business. The things you only told us is a half of the story. They need to know the rest of it. And so now they got Lil Cam and Pat both in there, and they say, you know what? Yeah, you helped us by telling on this guy and telling on them, but that ain't enough. They need more. Cause you know, they never gonna get enough. They can't do that. You know what I mean? A lot of people, when they start getting things handed to them like this, information, ideas and stuff, they're going to keep expecting more. They're not going to do the work no more. They just going to get Lil Cam and Pat to tell everything because they were there. They saw what happened. And so what they got to do is at this point, they know exactly how to break them. Once they get them to a certain level of them being scared and paranoid and sweating and realizing that they looking at 150 to 200 years each, that's when Pat started singing because he's the guy who actually is better friends with the getaway driver. The getaway driver guy, they going to find him next. That's probably going to be the next one. And then they still are trying to figure out how Migo Bands, if he was involved, the ballistic, did it go to, you know? And they basically trying to figure out, was he trying to defend or was he involved in the argument? Because anybody involved in the argument is just being looked at like, hey, you part of the problem too. You kept this argument heated. You kept egging it on. And that resulted in what happened to Takeoff. So they pretty much take all parties, pull them to the side, and they like, look, you got a lot of explaining to do because this should have never happened to Take. And everybody knows this too. And even Quavo was saying that they going to get the last guy. They're going to get the third guy. Because just by him driving Pat and Lil Cam away from that, he got mixed up as an accessory now. Like, bro, should have never even did that. Because what it ain't worth nothing. Now he has to go down with him. And they already told on him. So the plan was foiled. And now they're going to start to figure out, Lil Cam and Pat and their connections, if they have any, with what people are saying is MobTies, any connection there. Because if they linked up with MobTies, then they definitely gonna tell our MobTies, especially if they got paid or if they got invited or if they were told, given a signal, anything like that. Because everybody knows that people had to answer to bosses and MobTies. You just can't be a lone wolf in that group. If you in Fifth Ward or MobTies, you basically got to answer to Prince or Junior or Jazz or something. So it's one of them. And so now they're gonna try to figure out, are they connected to Cam and Pat? Are Pat and Cam part of MobTies, or are they just from Fifth Ward? And so once they clear that up, the whole thing is basically just like how Black Youngster was involved in with CMG, and now it's Lil Cam and Pat involved in with MobTies. So you understand how these two guys, just from doing what they did and being so close to MobTies, being invited to their party and everything, knowing them, kicking it with them, they might bring that whole thing down or might get them looked at even more closely. And that's what the people are saying. So make sure y'all stay tuned for the big updates coming out on this channel. So make sure you subscribe, like the video, and comment down below. Let me know where y'all from and who you rocking with. I'm going to catch you on the next one.